Hi everyone and welcome back to Chess for Charity. In this video, I'm going to show you a cool endgame puzzle where you have 3 pawns against your 2. So it's white to move, they're going up the board, and black's pawns of course are going down the board. And your job is to see, first of all, if you can win as the white pieces, and if you can, what's the move? And if you're not, what's the drawing move? Okay, so if you want to give it a second, try out the puzzle. Feel free to pause. If not, I'm going to go ahead and show the solution. So you have 2 pawns here, and the first thought might be you got to push these pawns up the board. You're going to start pushing. And that's correct. But the question is, which pawn do I push? And here's a really instructive lesson that you have to take with you in endgames. Between these 2, try to see if you can find a reason for which one to push first. So it turns out the D pawn is the better pawn to push. And actually, if you push the E pawn, you may lose the game. And I'll show why. But here is why the D pawn is better to push. So the D pawn, where does this square lead to? It leads to D8, which is currently checking the black king. Right? So let's just show E4. If I play E4, the king can come in, king G5, and if I just keep playing this, that's not going to be enough. King F5, and if I try to hold it like this, keep it together, I actually will end up losing this game because King E6 is going to hold these 2, and now these pawns are dangerous, right? Keep them the same color. Okay, so E4 doesn't work because it seems like the king can get in front and then stop my forces. Okay, and even if I don't push the pawn, if I kind of move my king in, the same problem applies because after king f4, you're holding me. If I play a move like this, it's just a little too slow because b5, and this pawn's going to start running up the board. The computer has this at about 1.5 for black. So after king f6, a5 it's saying, b4 it's saying, it's going to be a race. And you have to be careful in these races. So the reason why you don't want to go into that is because you have to see from the beginning that this pawn will promote with check as it currently sits, right? So let's see the variations and see why this makes sense. So d4. Okay, well if you're the black king, you realize you have to approach the pawn. If you don't approach the pawn, how in the world are you going to catch it? So which way does you go? Does it matter? Not really. King g5 is the way I'd play it. King f7, right? You realize that if you push this pawn more, what's going to happen? Well, now the king plays king f6. It's getting in, whether this way or that way. I believe f6 is the only winning move there. And you can't push, because if you do, it'll just be caught. So you have to play something like e4, but in the line like I described before, these pawns are kind of gridlocked now, meaning that the black pawns can run up the board, and white will be losing this game. So instead of playing this d5 move immediately, you have to play king f7, kind of keeping black's king out of this f6 square. And then king f5 looks like a good idea. After d5, I play, black would play king e5. And again, this is what we were talking about before. It looks like they're blocking off both, like this, both of these pieces, right? So, okay. I don't want them to take this pawn on d5, so I play e4, holding this together, understanding that if they take e4, I play d6, d7, d8, I win. No problem. So here's where the fun begins in the puzzle. So I was trying to get to this position right away. If you are black, you have a couple of pawns that can move. Now, here's the beauty of this position and why I think it's so cool. Pick a pawn, any pawn. We'll start with the A pawn and we'll work our way to the right. Does it work if I push it through? So if A5, I play king E7. I'm looking forward to promoting. Am I in time? Can you calculate? Let's see how deeply you can calculate. Well, if they keep pushing this pawn, I keep pushing my pawn. And see if you can find the move at the end. After this, what is white's best move? Well, look at this move on h8. Boom. And what is that creating? A skewer. The king has to move. Whether they take the pawn or not, this is going to be a win for white. A pretty simple one. Okay, so pushing the A pawn doesn't work. That race doesn't work. What about the B pawn? Let me go back. B pawn. Still king e7. I'm trying to support this square to push these pawns up the board. So then b4, d6, b3, d7, b2, promote to a queen. You promote to a queen. Here's such a cool move right here. Queen d6. What is creating? What is the point of making this move? What is it creating? It's creating the condition to block, block, and block. And this square is already blocked, which means they have to take the pawn, and you get hit with another skewer. This is skewer city here. And after that, white will go on to win, of course. Okay, so the A pawn fails, and the B pawn fails, both of which fail to a skewer. What about the H pawn? It's on the other side of the board. Maybe it's different. So king e7, h4, d6, h3, d7, h2, promote to a queen. You promote to a queen as well. And in a very similar fashion, queen d6 check. And what happens? Well, the king has to take. And now, check and take the queen. And this is not a tough win at all because the king is really far away. You pretty much, I don't know, if they ever want to move, you just go something like that. It depends on how you want to play it, but it's easy to win. So, the crux here is being able to realize way deep in the beginning that you have to push the D pawn because it's one step away farther for this king. Remember that if you try to do the same exact thing the other way around, it doesn't work because king g5, I go here, and king f4 is enough to block me. And if I take this extra step forward to try to support these pawns, it actually doesn't work because b5, a5, and it looks like that race is not going to be a win. So just to take a computer line out really quickly, b5, e5, b4, how are you stopping this pawn? King f6, b3, e6, b2, e7, you promote to a queen, I promote to a queen, and this is not clear at all, right? If anything, black is winning this. Black is up 2 pawns, just don't fall for any skewers or anything like that, and you should be fine if you're the black pieces. But notice that difference. Notice the difference between that and that initial move of d4. But yeah, that is it for this video. Hopefully you learned something in this endgame. These types of pawn endings happen all the time, so it's always good to know what to do. But if you enjoy the content, be sure to like and subscribe. I put new videos out all the time. And my whole goal is to spread the game of spread the game of chess, and help out charity. So that's it for now. Thanks so much. Bye.